With the announcement of the Cassette Tape Gathering 2024 Season 1 and the elusive prize of a limited edition Chasm card pack and a ton of Primo Gems, competition is going to be fierce. Without further ado, players, use this deck in the Cassette Tape Gathering: Mona, Eula, Wanderer, aka MEW. We'll start off with some deck samples which all have a similar game plan, but have different cards to make it work. Side note, you may substitute Wanderer with Dvalin, but that changes how the deck plays significantly. I'll go into more detail about that later in the video. MEW is a powerful and easy to learn aggro deck that focuses on the core of Mona and Wanderer, which utilizes Mona's fast swapping passive and Wanderer's ability to consistently trigger swirls. Round 1 of MEW is really linear, but it's important as it will heavily dictate how your entire match plays out, so these are the cards that you need to look out for in your starting hand: Dunyazard plus any companion, Instructor's Cap plus Lieben or Paimon, or any combination of Timaeus, Wagner, Dunyazard, and Opera Epiclese. Once you start with Mona's elemental skill, use up all remaining dice round 1 to set up ramp for Wanderer to go all in on round 2. With your 5 remaining dice, you can play Dunyazard into any companion. If you drew Timaeus or Wagner, now is a good time to play them, as you can equip an artifact or weapon for free next turn. If you already drew Instructor's Cap, you can equip it onto Wanderer before going into round 2. Since you only performed one skill on Mona, you'll most likely steal turn priority from your opponent. When round 2 starts, Mona lets you fast swap into Wanderer, allowing you to perform an elemental skill and get a free swirl. After using his elemental skill, Wanderer gains the win favored status, which lets him normal attack the next character instead of the active character, the character to the right, and if it's the rightmost character, it loops around and hits the leftmost character. With his special ability to hit standby characters, Wanderer can effectively swirl with every attack as he chooses which opposing character to hit, dealing AoE damage across the board. If you have Instructor's Cap or Tole equipped on Wanderer, he can perform more attacks per turn, due to Instructors generating dice every time he swirls, and Tole providing a discount for when his normal attacks is considered a charge attack. Another weapon you can equip onto Wanderer is 1000 Floating Dreams. This weapon lets Wanderer hit like an absolute truck. Once Wanderer's burst is charged and ready, your opponent's character should be heavily wounded thanks to his constant pressure, and his elemental burst, which deals 7 or 8 if he still has his win favored status, should easily take down an opponent's character. Remember that the main goal of your deck is to defeat an opponent with Wanderer by the end of round 2, or at least keep them at low enough health so that even a gentle breeze can knock them over. Use everything you have in round 2 to rush down your opponents. After defeating an opposing character with Wanderer, his job is mostly done. Try not to get greedy by continuing to attack with him, as his swirls can get rid of Hydro Auras that Eula needs. Only continue to attack with him if you are certain that he can knock out another unit, or if you fail to defeat anyone in round 2 and there are still 3 opposing characters on the board. You can stay on Wanderer to soak up the opponent's hits until he goes down, or swap back into Mona to use her fast swap for later. Eula will now act as the finisher of the deck. With her elemental skill, she can freeze the remaining characters who have Hydro applied, making them completely useless for the remainder of this turn. If she uses her elemental skill a second time, she activates her Grimheart status, which boosts the second hit of her skill, dealing 5 cryo damage. Wolf's Greystone is included in the deck, so that Eula can meet important damage thresholds, aka breakpoints, and punish stall decks that want to play slowly. You can equip Eula with artifacts such as Gilded Dreams, which help with dice fixing, then play Liar's Song, and equip her with Gilded Dreams again to generate more dice. Or equip her with Gambler's Earrings, which generates 2 Omni Dice when she defeats a character, letting her finish off the last opponent. Also, against combo decks that have a time-limited buff, such as Bennett's Burst, Yelan's Burst, etc., Mona swapping into Eula can completely shut down their combo, as you freeze their key units, forcing them to waste dice swapping around, while Eula gets her Grimheart buff, and threatens even more damage the next time she comes in. There are a lot of different ways you can build your MEW deck. I will go through each action card you can play in the deck and see how other people build their MEW decks. We'll go into each card in sections: weapons, artifacts, supports, and event cards. Weapons. 3 different weapons lets Wagner activate his ability to draw a weapon, making your opening more consistent. As mentioned in the previous section, TFD and Tuletula lets Wanderer do more damage in round 2, whereas Wolf's Greystone lets Eula rack up damage on stall decks, crippling them before they're able to fully set up. Instead of Tuletula, you can opt for Fruit of Fulfillment, which draws you 2 cards and expands the amount of options you can do during your turn. Artifacts. Run 6 artifacts if you have Timaeus in the deck. Otherwise, your most important artifacts are Gamblers and Instructors, as being an aggro deck, you want Gamblers to give you more dice to continue your onslaught, and Instructors to give Wanderer more actions in round 2. If you include Timaeus, Yayoi, Lyre Song, and 1 copy of Boar Princess, you can also add in Gilded Dreams. These cards make up what we call the magic engine. For decks that have 3 characters of different elements, like MEW, Gilded Dreams can generate 1 Omni and 1 dice of the matching element when equipped. Thanks to Yayoi and Lyre Song letting you play Gilded Dreams at a discount, you can actually gain dice from playing Gilded Dreams, letting you attack more in 1 turn, and surprising your opponents who think that you're out of dice for the round. It also draws you a card every time you trigger a reaction. Vorukasha draws you a card if you get hit, and heals the equipped character once per round during the end phase. It is an optional artifact as it is paired with Gilded Dreams and Yayoi, letting you draw more cards and slightly increase survivability. Support cards. These are the cards that you want to look out for in your opening hand, as they make your setup more consistent. Dungeoneer lets you play other companion cards more easily, and could draw you another companion card to help your round 1 prep. Timaeus and Wagner draw you an artifact and weapon respectively if their deck building criteria have been met. They start off at 2 stacks and gain 1 stack at the start of the next round, letting you equip stuff onto Wanderer for free next round. Yuzu gives 1 energy to characters who don't have any once per round, which is perfect for Wanderer, and Eula who will come in later in the game. Getting Wanderer's burst early can let you snipe an opposing character off the board before round 2 even ends. Paimon and Liban give 2 Omni dice, which gives you 10 dice in round 2, letting you perform at least 3 attacks on Wanderer. The new card, Opera Epiclese, gives you 1 matching dice if the cost of your equipment on your team is equal or more than your opponent's. Due to this deck running a lot of equipment, you can play this card to give you 1 extra dice for flexibility, or as a simple dice fixer. Just keep in mind how much the equipment costs you have compared to your opponent. Yayoi Nanatsuki discounts artifacts based on how many artifacts you already have equipped. The idea is to play cheaper artifacts, like Vorukasha and Instructor's Cap, to help discount Gilded Dreams, as Yayoi works like this. Having no equipped artifacts, she deducts the cost by 1. Having 1 character equipped, she deducts the cost by 2. And having 2 or more characters equipped, she deducts the cost by 3, thus making Gilded Dreams create up to 2 dice out of thin air, hence magic. Event cards. These are situational cards that are played depending on the matchup and current board situation. Lotus Flower Crisp gives 3 damage reduction, or another way to imagine, 3 effective HP for only 1 dice, making it a must-have in every deck, saving your key characters from certain death. The arcane legend that most people use in MEW is Fresh Wind of Freedom, or FWOF, which lets you take another action after knocking out an opposing character. This card can be game-winning if played in the right situation. Just don't waste it by playing it on some characters that have a revive mechanic that prevents them from being defeated for the first time. Another arcane legend that you can use is Ancient Courtyard, as this deck plays a lot of equipment. Whichever one you want is up to personal preference. Just keep in mind that you can only use 1 arcane legend per game. 1 copy of I Haven't Lost Yet to give Eula energy to burst in a clutch situation, and 1 copy of Leave It To Me to get you out of a tight situation against certain freeze decks. Strategize is used to draw more cards and increase your card option, or to help with dice fixing. 2 Lyre Song and 1 Boar Princess is a must if you decide to play Gilded Dreams. Lyre Song returns an equipped artifact and lets you play another artifact at -2 cost, which you will usually do to play Gilded Dreams at 1 cost, netting you 1 free dice. If you have 2 of them in hand, that's another free dice. You can also use it to equip Gamblers for free, but that comes up less often. Boar Princess gives up to 2 Omni dice for every equipment discarded. Take note that Lyre Song returns the artifact to your hand and does not discard it. You can play Boar Princess when you know Wanderer is about to be defeated, to give you 2 Omni dice which can help Eula with her comeback. Pair that with I Haven't Lost Yet, and suddenly Eula can do a free attack out of nowhere. Heavy Strike is a 1 cost card that gives you +1 on your next normal attack, and +2 if the normal attack is a charged attack. Keep in mind that a charged attack is performed when you do a normal attack with an even number of dice. This can help Wanderer snipe an opposing off-field character for 5 damage. Calcsage transfers 1 energy from each of your off-field units to your active character for 1 dice. You can use this on Wanderer to get a surprise burst on your opponent. Northern Smoked Chicken lets Wanderer do a normal attack for only 2 dice, or you can use it on Eula to squeeze out an extra bit of damage to close out the game. This deck is a glass cannon, so if you're concerned about survivability, Mondstadt Hash Brown is a decent healing food to keep your key characters safe. First, the most common version of Mew is Full Equipment Mew. You run both 6 artifacts and 3 different weapons for Timaeus and Wagner. The benefit is that your openings will be more consistent as you have a lot of choices for your opening hand, but you will have slight inconsistencies as drawing certain cards like Wolf's Gravestone and Gilded Dreams instead of Wanderer's equipment will mess up your game. But this version has the highest potential, as getting the equipment and instructor's cap on Wanderer lets you deal massive damage in round 2. But do keep in mind that this deck has less room for error, as it only runs 2 Lotuses, which means your characters have no way to heal themselves, and you need to make sure that the game ends by round 3 or 4. Next, by only running the key artifacts of Gambler's and Instructor's Cap, we have Wagner MEW. This deck is a bit more balanced as it has some healing, but also focuses on dishing out a lot of damage through equips, and the addition of Lucio to get Wanderer's Burst early to snipe any potential threat. Lastly, throwing out all weapons and leaving only Wolf's Gravestone for Eula to deal with stall decks, we have Magic Engine MEW. Although not running weapons, this deck can also deal damage by using the Magic Engine to generate more dice, thus performing more attacks. This deck also has slightly better survivability thanks to Vorukash's healing. This is the more advanced section of the guide, intended for people who are familiar with the deck and wish to know more about certain matchups with other meta decks. You can skip forward to the last section if you want to hear about Dvalin as an alternative to Wanderer. First, the MEW Mirror match. If you go first in the mirror, your plan is simple. Stick to the original game plan of Mona skill into ramp, then swirl with Wanderer in round 2. If you go second, you'll need to make some changes to your game plan. Start with Mona skill, then instead of ramping with your opponent, you instead go into Wanderer early to swirl them. You risk having less ramp in round 2, but this situation is better than ramping with your opponent in round 1, as the moment they swap off Mona, you will never swirl them for the entirety of round 2. From here on, it depends on how good your card draws are and your own decision making to outplay the mirror match. Senora Thunder Manifestation Ajdaha. Take note that Senora in her cryo form cannot be defeated, so don't waste your fourth on her. Take advantage of starting with Mona, as TM's Lightning Rod will mark her instead of your other 2 main carries. Make sure you have enough ramp to keep up with them, as they also have access to the Magic Engine to create dice out of thin air. Yelan OTK, or Yelan Senora TM. Their goal is to set up Yelan's burst, then go into TM or Senora. Take advantage of their setup time to swirl as much as possible with Wanderer. If you take out a character on their side and have the other 2 characters applied with Hydro, Eula can easily clean up by freezing them and wasting their Yelan burst. Also, if you drew Wolf's Gravestone, you can equip it onto Eula and freeze them early to stop their Yelan from setting up. Just be careful that they can potentially fast swap into Senora and freeze you as well. Lynette Tunimo, or Lynette Dia Jean. Against the stall deck, you want to look for Wolf's Gravestone or TFD. Put on as much pressure as possible and make sure Lynette and Jean have Hydro applied on them, so Eula can freeze them and put them in awkward situations. You can also keep Leave It To Me in hand to fast swap and pivot out of sticky situations. They can't really control you as you have Mona to soak up the hits, and fast swap out of their pushing effects. Look for ways to snipe them because their deck will crumble as soon as they lose a character who's geared up. Don't drag the game out for too long, as that's exactly what their deck wants to do. Finally, we have Finally, or Official Nahida Lini. A slightly disadvantageous matchup, as they are an equally strong aggro deck, which deals damage through summons instead. Don't fight them head to head, as they constantly swap between their characters, and they don't really care who gets knocked out thanks to Teyvat Fried Egg. Their openers are usually linear, either A, Official E into Nahida E to try and outdamage you, or B, Official E into Lini E to overload you into Eula. Don't waste the Hydro Aura by freezing them with Eula unless you have Wolf's Gravestone, otherwise just swap back into Wanderer. You can consider keeping Lotus or Leave It To Me in hand to mitigate their disruption. Be careful of their Tandoori Roast Chicken sniping a Wanderer. You need to know when to swap into Mona to keep Wanderer safe, then deal damage equally across the board and end the game quickly with Eula. This is a very complicated matchup as it all boils down to what cards you drew versus what cards they drew, so definitely be on high alert for this deck. Although not as popular, Dvalin is a unique alternative to Wanderer if you wish to experiment. His kit is vastly different, having 2 elemental skills. The 3 cost Temptations Barrage, which deals 2 Anemo damage and applies Total Collapse onto the target character, which causes them to take 2 more damage the next time they get hit with an Anemo or physical attack. The 5 cost Dvalin's Cleansing is a 3-part prepare skill that locks him into performing 3 attacks back to back. 2 Anemo on the active character, 1 Anemo on the previous character, and 2 Anemo on the next character. His burst costs 4 dice and 2 energy, dealing 5 Anemo damage and applies Total Collapse to the standby characters. Due to how his 5-cost prepare skill works, it only triggers Instructor's Cap once. And by virtue of Dvalin being a monster and not being able to equip weapons, the magic engine is the go-to for Dvalin's version. Also, with the increased deck space, you can also include more food. Adeptus Temptation lets Dvalin deal more damage with his burst, and Teyvat Friday can bring a character back to life, which can turn the tides if your opponent least expects it. Chef Mao is included to help recoup the cost of eating food. These changes shift MED from being an aggro deck like Mew to a bit more mid-range, as Dvalin has a more controlled playstyle by forcing your opponents to play around his Total Collapse debuff, which can let Eula deal surprising amounts of damage in the endgame. That's it for the video. Sorry I don't have any gameplay commentary. It's nearing the submission deadline and I had to rush this out early. This is my first time doing a longer form commentary video, so I'd appreciate the feedback. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more. And I'll see you in the Cat's Tail Gathering, because I'm playing in all 3 regions.